All right, what is up, everybody? We are back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today, I'm going to be talking about Jimmy Butler, man. The last couple of days, there's been a lot of talk, speculation about a potential Jimmy Butler trade. We're going to get into it here in today's video. Talk about the Heat side, other teams' side, what teams would want him, Jimmy Butler, everything surrounding the situation here in today's video. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. Really helps out a lot. That's my Twitter's, all that stuff down in the description below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So the whole Jimmy Butler situation that's going on in Miami. There's a potential that Jimmy Butler might be traded this season. What are the odds? I don't really know. So it came out a couple days ago. Shams reported saying that the Miami Heat are open to listening to offers on Jimmy Butler. That was the first report that came out a couple days ago, which sparked kind of this whole thing. And then as the days have gone on, more stuff has come out about Jimmy Butler, more about potential teams he want to go to and stuff. At first, it was first reported that apparently his agent said that the teams that Jimmy Butler would be open to would be win now contender teams, and those teams would be the Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Rockets, which is his hometown, and the Golden State Warriors. Then also a day or two after, it was also reported that the Phoenix Suns were a team that were interested, but that's been a whole back and forth because Jimmy Butler's agent came out and said, no, that's a lie. Shams has been lying this whole time, but then Shams also said, I stand on my reporting. So where that is, I don't really know right now. But there is a potential that Jimmy Butler could be on the move. This isn't something that's just came out of thin air. Obviously, this past offseason, after their Miami's last season ended where they lost in the first round to the Boston Celtics, Pat Riley had a press conference that said a lot. And some of the things he said in that press conference were we need guys being healthy. We don't need any more shenanigans, anything more like that. We need guys to be healthy. And a lot of it he didn't directly say Jimmy Butler or Bam. He didn't say direct names, obviously. But a lot of people speculated that Jimmy Butler could be the main guy that he's talking about, you know? And also add in the fact that Jimmy Butler is on the last year of his deal this year. He does have a player option for next year, but everything is pointing towards him declining that player option to go into free agency and get one more kind of big bag before he goes out because he probably will be one of the top, if not potentially the top name in this next year's free agency class. So that was we already came into the season kind of with that in mind. Like this could be Jimmy's last year in Miami, especially with Miami Heat kind of struggling over the past couple years. They made a couple finals appearances, but they still have not really gotten to that point where they're a consistent top tier contender in the Eastern Conference. And then as you start this season where the Heat have kind of been just been kind of average. They haven't been great, but they haven't been bad. They just kind of been eh. Jimmy Butler hasn't had a great season. He's having his worst statistical season since like in a long time. Jimmy is hasn't been playing that well, and then the reports are starting up again. Miami are listening to offers on Jimmy Butler. I just got actually a report right before I started recording this video that he preferred win now players in a potential Jimmy Butler trade and all that stuff. So where do we stand right now? Miami Heat are currently sitting at 13 and 10, fifth in the Eastern Conference. They're actually on a little win streak right now, so things are starting to improve. Jimmy giving you 18, 5, and 4 this season, his lowest points per game average since 2014, his third year in Chicago, where he finally started to get minutes. He's having a similar season to 2019, the year he went from Minnesota to Philadelphia. And yeah, things have not been great for Jimmy Butler. We already know the past couple years, Jimmy Butler in the regular season, we just can't really expect too much from him anymore. In terms of production, in terms of being an all NBA type player, in terms of being consistently wanting to play, in terms of games played, we just have not been able to really rely on that. Where Jimmy Butler's a lot of value comes in the playoffs. Playoff Jimmy, we know, is a real thing. There's been multiple times where he has stepped up in the playoffs. 2 years ago, he took the 8 seed Miami Heat all the way to the NBA Finals. Like we know in the playoffs, he becomes a top 10 player. That's where a lot of his value is. Regular season, we don't really know too much about how much Jimmy is really committed to this team, especially this season where, again, he's having a low statistical season. Tyler Hero has been really the main guy in the Miami Heat. And it's just, it's going to be very weird to trade Jimmy Butler. That's what it is. It's going to be very weird to trade Jimmy Butler. And I'm still kind of on the fence of what I think is going to happen or not. Like, I honestly do believe that in some of the things, I do have a slight feeling that Jimmy Butler will be traded. just because I feel like there's been so much coming out recently that it's like if one or two reports came out here or there, and then nothing else, it'd just been fine. But with like, I feel like every day there's a new kind of thing coming out with Jimmy Butler. I just feel like there's too much talking that it's gonna happen. You know, especially with Miami Heat, a team that the Miami Heat, we don't really hear a lot of this talking that much. Usually this is internal, and then it just happens, and then you find out the story later. Miami never, there's never really this much reporting and this much stuff going on with the Miami Heat. You know, they're always one of the top tier, first class organizations that don't let things leak out that often. You know, so with Miami Heat, this much leaking out about the Miami Heat, I feel like something could be in the works. You know, but then also I'm on the other side where I don't think it's gonna happen because trading Jimmy Butler is gonna be very, very hard to do for multiple reasons. Number one, the second apron is a thing now. And a lot of the teams, a lot of the win now contending teams that Jimmy Butler would want to go to are either A, gonna have to give up half of their rotation to make it done, or B, can't actually financially do it because if you're a team in the second apron over the tax, you can't aggregate players in trading. You have to get back literally the contracts have to be perfectly aligned and matched up, you know? Um, like there's been like of course Dallas, Houston, Golden State and Phoenix are the four teams right now that have been kind of in the mix for Jimmy Butler. Looking at the trades potentially for those teams, it's going to be tough. For the Dallas Mavericks, they're literally going to have to give up PJ Washington, Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford. They're going to have to give up basically like four of their top eight players really to get Jimmy Butler. And at that point, it's like, is it worth it having just Kyrie, Jimmy, and Luca? Is that really how good is that? How much better does that make the Dallas Mavericks? I don't really know. For the Houston Rockets, they have the pieces to do it. They have young players, they have talent, all this stuff. But the Rockets already have indicated multiple times throughout this season saying we're not going to make any big in-season trades. And honestly, with the pieces the Houston Rockets have, they can go after way more than Jimmy Butler. Their sights can be set way higher than Jimmy Butler. You know, so you have that. The Golden State Warriors, honestly, is probably the most realistic option. If I were to pick who Jimmy Butler will go to, I think it probably would be the Warriors. But the Warriors kind of struggling a little bit. They definitely look like they need another guy. They look like they would be the team that would buy in on a Jimmy Butler. They have some young pieces over there. You know, they have guys that can make the contracts work. So I think Golden State probably would be the most realistic option. They probably have to give up something like Andrew Wiggins, maybe one of the young players, some couple picks, which is tough because Andrew Wiggins actually is having a really, really good season, and he's a guy that you would want on a team like the Golden State Warriors. But it just kind of depends on how desperate they are. You know, if they really feel like we need something else and we think Jimmy is going to be the answer, then let's do it. And I think they would do it. The Phoenix Suns one, I think it's all just talk with the Phoenix Suns. I kind of don't believe that the Suns are a real option because why? Why would the Suns? Why do the Suns even believe that? The only way for the Suns to make this trade is if they swap Bradley Beal for Jimmy Butler. And if you're doing that, what's really the point? What does that do for any of the teams? What does that do for Phoenix? Sure, Jimmy Butler, especially in the playoffs, that gives you another reliable scorer. But also, it's like what are we really doing? And for the Miami Heat, why would you want Bradley Beal back when you already have Tyler Hero? It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense at all to me. So I think Phoenix. I think that's just a word being thrown out that's like I think it's all just talking for the Phoenix Suns. But for the Golden State Warriors, I really do believe it is a realistic thing that Jimmy could end up on the Warriors in a couple months, you know? But when you're trading for Jimmy Butler, and why I think it's going to be another reason why I think it's hard to trade him is that you're not just trading for Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy. You're also trading for a regular season Jimmy Butler, who we've seen, I'm saying right now, is having one of his worst statistical seasons since becoming a all-star type of talent. There's been a lot of times throughout the last couple of years where you definitely see he doesn't really take the regular season that serious. He's okay with having a game where he takes 4 or 5 shots, 6 shots, has 8 points. You know, he's okay with that in the regular season, which, you know, in a Western Conference, especially if you're a team for the Warriors, if you're a team in the Western Conference, you lose 2 games in a row, you can fall from 5 to 9. You know, and that's a huge difference. So every win matters there. He also has not been available a lot in the regular season. You know, so far this year, he's missed 5 games this season out of 18. Since being on the Miami Heat, he has not played in more than 64 games. 64 games is what he's maxed out at. He has not played in over 70 games in a season since 2017, his last year in Chicago. That was the last time he played more than 70 games. He played 76 games. And actually, in his entire NBA career, he's only played in over 70 games twice. 2013, his second year in the league, he played all 82. And then 2017, he played 76 games. After that, after his year in Chicago, 59, 65, 58, 52, 57, 64, 60 last year. And now currently, he's played 18 out of 23. He's missed 5 games already this season. So I guess he's on pace maybe to play like, what, 60 something again this year. So regular season just can't really rely on him. And also, Jimmy Butler play style is not a thing that, I do believe Jimmy is better than a lot of other people. I've seen them compared to like DeMar DeRozan and stuff. And I think Jimmy maybe is a little bit more better in terms of fitting into a team because I feel like Jimmy Butler would be okay, and we've shown that he is okay with doing all the other things in terms of like locking down defense, rebounding, playmaking, making the extra play. Like I think Jimmy would be okay with that. But in terms of him having the ball, he also is a guy that also kind of needs the ball in his hands because he's not going to be a catch and shoot guy. He's not going to be a guy that's going to come off screens and do that all day. He also kind of needs his time with the ball, get in the post, get to the free throw line, do things like that. And with the Warriors, I don't really know how that would work. I don't think it would be a horrible fit. Honestly, I really don't think it would be, but it'd just be interesting. And also, you're getting the person of Jimmy Butler, the character of Jimmy Butler, who we've seen multiple times. He's a strong personality. He's a guy that, likes things a certain way and likes teammates a certain way. He's not someone that just fits anywhere. You go anywhere and he's like, oh, we saw him in Minnesota. Why do you think he only played 69 games in Minnesota? We've seen it. You know, why do you think Miami was the perfect option for him? Why do you think he left Chicago? Because him and the coach didn't get along. He left Minnesota. Him and the players didn't get along. You know, like Miami was the perfect spot for him. Jimmy, we've seen throughout multiple times in his career, Jimmy Butler is a guy that comes with a lot of things. He's a personality. He's a strong personality, and that's something you have to think about when you trade for Jimmy Butler. Is how is he going to fit in this locker room with this team? How is he going to vibe with this team? You know, because you don't want to trade for a guy and then he doesn't fit the locker room, and then all of a sudden everything's in chaos. Like that's not something you want to do. So yeah, you're. I think it's gonna be really hard to trade Jimmy Butler. Honestly, if I had to put odds on it, I would say maybe like it'd be a 40-60 for me personally. Like 40% he does, 60% he doesn't. But I do genuinely believe there's so much talk that even if a trade doesn't happen, I think things are definitely going to be in talks. There's definitely going to be teams in talks and some slight motion happening if it doesn't happen. Because I just feel like there's too much going on right now about too much talking that just some of this has to be real, you know? And so we'll see what happens. I don't think it's gonna happen right away. Obviously, I think if it does happen, it would be probably closer to February near the trade deadline. You know, but we'll see what happens. And what Miami gets back, I don't really know. That's gonna be an interesting thing to see if a trade does happen. What Miami will get back. The report came out today earlier. They said they want win now players, but how many win now players are you getting for Jimmy Butler? You're probably gonna get some decent contracts because you need to make money match. Obviously, he's making almost $50 million, so you need some money. And usually, players with money are players that could be win now players. But I'm interested to see more of if they do get any young pieces back, if they do get some decent draft capital back for Jimmy. I'm very interested. Also, you got to think about the team that's getting Jimmy Butler. Also, probably is going to re-sign him because again, he most likely is going to hit the free agency market. And how much do you want to spend on a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler? That's probably going to be your second or third best player on your team. Just something to think about there. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more being talked about throughout the next month and a half or whatever about Jimmy and this trade situation that's going down. We'll see what happens. Just got to keep an eye on it. And I'm very, very interested to see what team would actually not, I don't want to say bite the bullet, think that it's a bad thing, but what team actually would pull the trigger on a Jimmy trade? But yeah, it's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.